Logan's death. Actor Brian Cox himself fueled one of the wildest conspiracy theories about succession. On the official podcast in April 2023, Cox suggested that Logan Roy might have faked his death in Season 4, Episode 3. Cox noted that viewers never actually see Logan die on screen. The death occurs off-camera on Logan's private jet heading to Sweden, shown primarily from his children's perspective through phone calls. Only brief shots show Logan's body on the airplane floor, with no clear facial close-ups during the death sequence. Cox theorized that Logan might have staged an elaborate ruse to observe how his children would behave when he was gone, watching the chaos unfold from a distance. He doubled down on this theory during a BBC Two interview in May 2023, saying the only way Logan could truly test his children would be to fake his death. Creator Jesse Armstrong confirmed in an Inside the Episode segment that Logan is actually dead, explaining the off-screen death was an intentional artistic choice to capture the modern experience of separation and death via phone and email. What makes this theory compelling is that it came from the actor himself, and Logan Roy is precisely the type of Machiavellian character capable of such an elaborate scheme. The off-screen nature left just enough ambiguity for speculation to flourish, even though Armstrong's explanation confirms it was about artistic intent rather than plot setup. Greg's mastermind. Cousin Greg's bumbling persona may be an elaborate act concealing a calculating genius. This theory gained serious momentum after Season 4, Episode 8, when Greg's actions appeared suspiciously strategic during the election night chaos. Den of Geek analyzed how Greg was eating wasabi next to Darwin's computer when Darwin suddenly got wasabi in his eye, preventing the decision desk head from going on air to undermine ATN's premature election call for Mencken. Greg then supposedly helped by washing Darwin's eye with lemon LaCroix, which only made things worse. The theory asks whether this was genuine incompetence or deliberate sabotage. Throughout the series, Greg demonstrates a pattern of hoarding secrets and leveraging information. He preserved the cruise documents for potential blackmail, knows details about Kendall's waiter incident from Season 1, and repeatedly rats out allies when it benefits him. Time magazine noted in May 2023 that Greg flips on anyone who treats him poorly or doesn't offer him power in the moment. Lucas Matsson took sudden interest in Greg after learning he fires dozens of people via Zoom without hesitation, suggesting there might be ruthlessness beneath the awkward exterior. The theory remains unproven, but possible, because the show deliberately leaves Greg's competence ambiguous. His success could be masterful manipulation or pure nepotism and luck, and both interpretations fit the show's themes about how mediocrity succeeds in corporate America. Shiv's betrayal. The name Shiv literally means knife in prison slang, seemingly prophesying her ultimate act in the series finale. Shiv Roy's nickname carries a double meaning that fans debated for years. While her full name Siobhan is Irish Gaelic meaning God is gracious, the shortened version refers to a makeshift stabbing weapon. To shiv someone means to backstab them, which is exactly what happened in the May 2023 finale, when Shiv voted against her brothers Kendall and Roman at the final board meeting. Nameberry editor Sophie Kim noted the dual meaning was likely intentional, given the show's careful naming choices. Throughout the series, multiple characters and fans referenced this connection, with Reddit users speculating before Season 4 that Shiv would be the ultimate traitor. The family surname Roy means king in French and Latin, making Shiv literally the knife of kings. What makes this theory compelling rather than confirmed is the question of intentionality. Executive producer Frank Rich revealed that some character names had deliberate meanings, while others were coincidental. The show's Shakespearean literary ambitions suggest this could have been one of television's longest setup-payoff structures, with Shiv's defining action embedded in her nickname from the pilot episode. Whether this was planned foreshadowing or fans finding patterns after the fact remains unconfirmed, but the connection is undeniably perfect. Kendall's water. Every time Kendall Roy encounters water throughout Succession, it marks a critical psychological turning point. The water motif first appears in the Season 1 finale, when Kendall drives a car into a lake, killing a waiter. This establishes water as the physical manifestation of Kendall's guilt and trauma. Season 2, Episode 1 shows Kendall at a rehab facility with water imagery, barely surviving under Logan's control. The most striking moment comes in Season 3, Episode 8, when Kendall appears face down on a pool float after his emotional collapse, in what many interpreted as an attempt to take his own life, though Kendall denies this characterization. Reddit users theorized before the finale that Kendall would die by drowning, with one user posting that he'd been sinking in bathtubs and pools forever. Season 4, Episode 6, shows a triumphant Kendall swimming in the ocean after his successful Living Plus presentation, interpreted by some as baptism and rebirth. The series finale features Kendall staring longingly at the Hudson River with a security guard present. Actor Jeremy Strong told The Hollywood Reporter in May 2023 that the finale represents the death of his character, describing it as a slow, moral, and spiritual death like Michael Corleone, even though Kendall physically survives. The show's structural foundation is John Berryman's poem Dream Song 29, which ends with the protagonist taking his own life by jumping into a frozen river. This theory remains unproven but possible because Strong revealed he advocated for Kendall's physical death throughout production, suggesting the water foreshadowing was intentional, even if the literal death didn't occur. Roman's trauma. Roman Roy's sexual dysfunction and disturbing jokes may indicate he survived childhood assault. This theory, compiled by writer Kieran Rose Pilon in October 2021, suggests Roman's behavior shows classic survivor coping mechanisms. Roman makes frequent jokes about molestation and incest throughout the series, always focusing on himself rather than others in a self-deprecating pattern that no other Roy sibling exhibits. He demonstrates a complete inability to engage in traditional intimacy, unable to complete interactions with girlfriend Tabitha. Season 1, Episode 8, reveals Roman claims he wet the bed as a child and was sent to military school, with Connor confirming Logan viewed Roman as the weaker dog. Bedwetting can be a symptom of childhood trauma, though not definitive on its own. The show reveals Roman asked to be put in a dog cage and forced to eat dog food, though Connor and Kendall claim it was actually chocolate cake. Statistics show approximately 30% of molested children are victimized by family members. The show references that Logan kept Roman away from Mo Lester, the cruise line executive whose nickname literally references molestation. Roman brushes off the cruise line assault scandal in Season 2, Episode 6, possibly showing the "if I survived it, so can you" response some survivors exhibit. Time magazine called Roman the most sensitive sibling and arguably the most pained. This theory remains unproven and will likely never be confirmed, but the textual evidence creates a disturbingly plausible interpretation of Roman's specific dysfunction. The possibility exists because Kieran Culkin's performance leaves just enough ambiguity that the behavior could represent trauma responses rather than simply personality quirks. By the way, if you're enjoying this so far, I post videos like this all the time. Subscribing would really help out. Tom's baseball. Tom Wambsgans shares his unusual surname with the only baseball player to complete an unassisted triple play in World Series history. Nameberry editor Sophie Kim posted a viral TikTok theory in May 2023 connecting Tom's name to Bill Wambsgans, who played second base for Cleveland from 1914 to 1923. Bill Wambsgans completed the only unassisted triple play in World Series history during Game 5 of the 1920 championship, meaning one player got 3 outs alone. The theory suggested Tom would eliminate all 3 Roy siblings to become successor, which is exactly what happened when Tom became CEO in the finale, after effectively removing Kendall, Shiv, and Roman from contention. The theory gained massive attention and was covered by the New York Times, Cosmopolitan, and Sports Illustrated. However, executive producer Frank Rich explicitly debunked this via email to Slate in May 2023, stating he hated to spoil the internet's fun, but the connection was false. Rich explained Tom's name was chosen before Season 1 filming simply for being off-key and awkward to pronounce, befitting an outsider character. The name came from a Succession staff member who had a relative named Wambsgans. Rich noted that key writers, including creator Jesse Armstrong, are British and devoted to British football, not American baseball. What makes this theory fascinating, despite being debunked, is that it came true anyway. This represents the internet's love of finding patterns that aren't actually there, yet the coincidence is so perfect that even knowing it was unintentional doesn't diminish how well it fits the outcome. Connor's wisdom. The eldest Roy son might be the only sibling who truly understands the family's dysfunction. Connor is consistently dismissed as delusional by his family, particularly regarding his presidential campaign and distance from Waystar business. A 2021 blog post argued Connor is a vital ingredient who inverts the show's central question. Unlike his siblings, Connor is independently wealthy enough to do whatever he wants without desperately seeking Logan's approval. Connor's mother was institutionalized by Logan, and he coped by eating what the family mockingly called loony cakes for a week straight. While Kendall, Shiv, and Roman destroy themselves fighting for their father's empire, Connor opts out entirely. The theory suggests Connor isn't delusional, but rather the only one who sees clearly that Logan's empire isn't worth the cost. His presidential campaign and New Mexico ranch represent freedom rather than failure. Alan Ruck plays Connor with a pompous exterior that might conceal genuine insight about the futility of the succession battle. This theory remains unproven, but gains credibility from the series finale, where Connor appears arguably happier than his siblings despite being considered the least successful. The possibility exists because the show deliberately presents Connor as a joke while simultaneously showing he's the only Roy child who built a life outside Logan's shadow. Whether this represents wisdom or delusion depends entirely on what you consider winning, which is precisely the question Succession poses about power and family. Marcia's return. Logan's third wife disappeared for most of Season 4, but returned at his death with suspiciously perfect timing. Marcia Roy, played by Hiam Abbas since the series premiere, suffered a rift with Logan after his affair with Rhea Jarrell in Season 2. She gained amendments to the trust, giving her significant power after Logan's stroke in Season 1, then vanished for much of Seasons 3 and 4. Carrie mentions in the Season 4 premiere that Marcia is in Milan shopping forever. When Marcia returns immediately after Logan's death in Episode 4, she tells Kendall they spoke intimately every evening and remained very close despite the complications. She immediately begins negotiating, selling Logan's penthouse to Connor for $60 to $70 million. A Reddit theory before Season 4 cited Marcia's earlier quote to Rhea about how if she loses, generally the other person loses an eye, suggesting she would eventually return for revenge. Collider analyzed in April 2023 how Marcia takes no prisoners in dealing with Logan's estate. The theory suggests Marcia maintains secret contact with Logan to position herself perfectly for his death, either as calculated revenge or strategic estate planning. This remains unproven because Marcia's true motivations were never fully revealed in the series. The possibility exists that her absence was a strategic retreat to maintain her legal position while appearing uninvolved in company drama, allowing her to swoop in and monetize Logan's death without sentiment. The show deliberately keeps Marcia enigmatic, making it impossible to determine whether she genuinely loved Logan despite his flaws, or coldly calculated her financial position all along. Matsson's instability. The Gojo CEO's erratic behavior suggests deeper problems that could undermine everything. Lucas Matsson, played by Alexander Skarsgård, reveals in Season 4, Episode 5, that he sent liters of his blood to ex-girlfriend and employee Ebba repeatedly. When confronted, Matsson dismisses it as a complex situation rather than admitting wrongdoing, saying he'll deny everything and just lawyer it out. He also inflated Gojo's overseas subscriber numbers, committing fraud that makes him increasingly paranoid. When greeting Shiv, he jokes about whether he'll get a lawsuit if he hugs her, treating harassment concerns as humorous rather than serious. Collider noted in April 2023 that Matsson doesn't believe his behavior was wrong, he just knows other people will think it's wrong. The theory suggested Matsson's increasing instability could cause the Waystar deal to collapse, or lead to legal consequences that would change everything. This remains unproven because the series ended with Matsson successfully acquiring Waystar and installing Tom as his puppet CEO. However, the possibility existed throughout Season 4 that Matsson's behavior represented a ticking time bomb. The blood-sending incident alone would typically end most executives' careers, but Matsson treats it as a nuisance. The theory asks whether Succession would show even tech billionaire eccentricity has limits, or whether wealthy men always escape consequences. The show chose the latter, but the theory remains valid as speculation about what could have derailed the deal. Kendall's death. Visual and narrative clues throughout all 4 seasons suggested Kendall Roy would die by drowning. Reddit users theorized before the finale that Kendall would die by drowning as an act to end his own life, pointing to recurring water imagery. Season 1's finale shows Kendall driving into a lake where a waiter drowns beside him. Season 3, Episode 8 shows Kendall face down on a pool float in what appeared to be an attempt to take his own life. Jeremy Strong told The Hollywood Reporter in May 2023 there were multiple discussions about ending Kendall's story this way throughout production. The show's entire structure is based on John Berryman's poem Dream Song 29, which ends with the protagonist taking his own life by jumping into a frozen river. Each season finale title references this poem. The final scene shows Kendall staring at the Hudson River with a security guard present, clearly indicating continued ideation. Strong said the finale represents the death of his character, describing it as a slow, moral, and spiritual death, even though Kendall physically survives. Strong revealed his instinct in filming the finale was for Kendall to jump the rail in Battery Park, and that he advocated for Kendall's physical death throughout the series. This theory remains unproven regarding what happens after the finale ends. The possibility exists that Kendall eventually succumbs to the weight he's carried since Season 1, or that he continues living as a broken shell. The show deliberately chose spiritual death over physical death, but Strong's comments confirm the foreshadowing was intentional, making this theory partially validated even in its literal non-occurrence. Election fraud. In Season 4, Episode 8, ATN calls the election for authoritarian candidate Jared Mencken without adequate vote counts. A Milwaukee polling place fire destroys approximately 100,000 Democratic-leaning mail-in ballots, creating chaos. Roman pushes ATN's decision desk to call Wisconsin for Mencken before votes are fully counted, with decision desk head Darwin warning this would lead to months of scrutiny and legal interrogations. Greg accidentally gets wasabi in Darwin's eye, preventing him from explaining on air that the call isn't definitive. Roman refers to the fire as a false flag and blames Antifa on air, echoing real conspiracy theory language. The episode, which aired May 14, 2023, deliberately mirrors the 2020 election's Fox News Arizona call. Eric Schultz, Obama's deputy press secretary who served as consultant, told The Hollywood Reporter the episode explored electoral mayhem scenarios. Real networks have strict firewalls between editorial and business sides that Succession shows being completely broken. The theory suggested the Roys could face criminal charges for election interference, potentially destroying Waystar entirely and making the succession question moot. This remains unproven because the series never showed legal consequences for the election call. The possibility existed that Succession would go full Greek tragedy and have the Roys face prosecution for undermining democracy. The episode has been widely described as the most shocking of the season, suggesting it was meant to provoke exactly this speculation. The show leaving this unresolved might be its darkest statement about power, implying that wealthy media moguls escape consequences even for destabilizing elections, though we'll never know if accountability would have eventually arrived. If you found this valuable, subscribe so you never miss new content. Appreciate you watching.